Hello and welcome to this special live edition of MyRadar's Surviving the Season. I'm Chief Meteorologist Leslie Hudson. As you probably know, today marks the very first day of the 2021 hurricane season, although it started 2 weeks ago with Tropical Storm Anna. We have by all accounts, this is expected to be a very busy year over the next 6 months. If you feel like you're in a hurricane haze from the last year, well, we're going to try and take some of that pressure off of you and try and make it a little less stressful as you try to prepare for the season. But before we get started, I want to introduce you to the MyRadar weather team. And joining me is meteorologist Jamie Martin, as well as meteorologist Mike Linden, and out in the field in Texas is our very own storm chaser, Aaron Jajak. So we all will be getting here with you guys in just a couple of minutes to share our experiences with you as we prepared for today. But before we do that, let's take a look at the MyRadar app. We always like to begin with the app, of course, and we are taking a look at the Big Atlantic Basin. I got a couple of things turned on. I have the water vapor imagery turned on, as well as the wind layer, and this is a great way, one of the best ways to track systems is with the wind layer. And I'm going to actually zoom in here over to near Florida. There's an upper level low. This is not a surface low, but you can still see from the winds here that there is definitely some things going on, a little spin there, creating some showers across the southern 2/3 of the state of Florida. So that means that it's going to be, of course, a rainy day for those folks down there. Meanwhile, during last year's record hurricane season, the National Hurricane Center issued more than 600 tropical advisories. That's about double the norm in a regular season. And the Hurricane Center issued about 378 hours of hurricane warnings. Guess what that means? About 16 days that some part of the U.S. was under a hurricane warning. The Hurricane Center is gearing up for another frenetic pace this year. I just spoke with the National Hurricane Center just a little bit ago, about an hour and a half ago. Here's more now from my interview with storm surge specialist Jamie Rome from the National Hurricane Center. Of course, today being the first day of the 2021 hurricane season, a lot of people are talking about it today, but you can't help talk about last year. And joining me now is one of the lead hurricane specialists from the National Hurricane Center, Jamie Rome. Jamie, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today. I know it's been a busy day there.
Oh, thank you for having us. It's a pleasure.
So I want to talk a little bit about 2020 first. When we take a look at that and the season in totality with the 30 named storms, how do you all put a bow on last year's season when you're looking ahead at this season and what we can anticipate?
Yeah, so much that can be said about the 2020 season. We only scratched the surface of telling all of the stories. Alas, June 1 has descended upon us, and we're no longer really talking about 2020, but as much as preparing people for 2021. But one of the biggest lessons that we learned in 2020 is this slow creeping up of indirect fatalities. And by indirect, I'm talking about those that aren't directly attributable to the wind or surge, or more specifically, those that often occur after the storm has passed, in the cleanup and response and recovery after the storm.
When we talk about 2020, I listened to your seminar about 2 weeks ago at the National Hurricane Seminar that was going on in Texas, and your research was fascinating on Hurricane Laura. Can we talk a little bit about that hurricane? That was obviously probably the signature hurricane of the 2020 season that caused so much destruction and unfortunately so many deaths. What is some of the research that came out of that hurricane that was useful that we will use moving forward?
Yeah, there's so much. The biggest thing is that a lot of people wrongly assume that no storm surge happened in Laura due to this single observation platform that was west of where the center really made landfall and didn't capture the peak. So there's an observed 17.1 foot above ground level. So I'm 6 feet. My head is 6 feet above ground level. So that's way over my head. Storm surge. And then we estimated that the peak was 18. So that's a staggering amount of water. And despite that amount of water impacting a relatively low-lying flat area, we have no storm surge related fatalities in that area, nor any evidence of any rescues after the fact. And that implies a near 100% evacuation compliance, which is unheard of in this line of this business.
Well, when you were talking at that seminar, you mentioned, there was a lot of buzz around the description when on one of those advisories that said that that type of storm surge would not be survivable. To the credit of the Hurricane Center and the local offices there, like as you said, there were no fatalities from the storm surge. Do you think that some of that messaging the Hurricane Center in particular is really starting to hone in on some of those messages to get the word out to people, because usually what gets people to react is either fear or some type of signature like that says you've got to get out of there if you want to live.
Yeah, I mean, so we don't have any direct evidence that but we've heard from a lot of emergency managers and a lot of residents that when they heard that information, that's what prompted people to go. So we have to assume that it was effective. I can't recall a 100% evacuation compliance ratio in my career. So, it's hard to imagine that it didn't have some impact. Obviously, people make decisions off a myriad of information. A lot of people had evacuated before we even used that language. So you can't attribute all of the success to the phrase unsurvivable, but there were certainly some stragglers hanging back that upon hearing that packed up and left.
And one of the other remarks I recall, that was mentioned about that storm surge is that it was a little bit more similar like a tsunami, that it was so fast and it was so quick. Can you talk a little bit about that in general, with Hurricane Laura and the fast rising of these waters, and people just are not aware how quick that can happen?
So we have an observation system the year where the peak storm surge came in that measured an 8 to 10 foot rise in 1 hour. So in 1 hour, the ocean rose 8 to 10 feet above its normal levels, which is staggering. I don't know that I've ever seen that type of rise in my tenure, at least observed. And it's absolutely impossible to react to that water rise. It's not as quick as a tsunami, but it's kind of up there in a sense that it's impossible to, upon the water sort of lapping at your doorstep, walking or fleeing at that point. And that's what contributed to the phrase unsurvivable, is we really felt that not only the extent, how far inland, the height, 18 feet, and then how quickly the water rose, that it was just, anyone who stayed wouldn't have survived it.
Well, last question, I think, for you, Jamie, is in that context. We understand that we're in a multi-decadal increased activity with tropical cyclones in general. Since the mid-1990s, we're seeing more storms. We're seeing, storms impact the United States. There's always this push to try and hang a hat on climate change, and while the research doesn't necessarily vet that out, it does, from what I understand, that storms are becoming more intense, and there is a gradual water rise. So how do you see things in the next 10 years or so with storm surge and this possibility of stronger hurricanes and the fact that sea levels are rising?
So let's first depoliticize this climate change, because there's a wide spectrum of views on this topic. So if you were standing in a highway, we wouldn't debate the color of a vehicle coming towards you at 70 miles per hour. We would focus on getting you out in front of that car. So when it comes to climate change, regardless of what you feel is or isn't causing it, the ramifications and impacts are the same. The ocean is absolutely rising and is going to continue to rise over the course of our lifetimes. And this forms a higher and higher base upon which future storm surges can take advantage of it. And so hurricanes are going to get worse from an impacts perspective, even if they're not stronger. And even if you still don't know the causes of climate change, or if you're still debating the causes of climate change, storms are just going to get worse.
Well, I think that's just so key for people as they try to prepare for this year. And Jamie, we want to thank you again for talking to us briefly today about storm surge. I could talk to you for hours about this stuff. It's so fascinating. Storm surge is one of the the benchmark signatures of the headlines when a hurricane comes. And is there anything else that you'd like to touch on today that we should let people know about as we prepare for 2021?
It'd be easy to assume that us and experts just sit here and just say these things as talking points, but we practice what we preach here at the Hurricane Center. And I personally have already started preparing for hurricane season. I've already fired up the generator one time to make sure that it's in good operating conditions, ready to go. I've already started looking at my supplies, and these are the things you can do now, well before a hurricane forms or threatens your area, and it will make a huge, huge difference in how you deal with a threatening hurricane.
Absolutely. Well, we are going to be talking about that at great length throughout these next 30 minutes in our live show that we have coming up. Jamie, again, thank you so much. Leads hurricane specialist at the National Hurricane Center, Jamie Rowan. It was indeed a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you, and stay safe this year.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, 3 words that will get you ready for this hurricane season are easy to remember: plan, prepare, and execute.
Especially in the midst of a global pandemic.
What are some of the things that you think are most important for people to do as that June 1 date approaches?
Well, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. We're making progress, but we're still, taking safety measures. People still not going to work. So, we were through this last year. Now we feel more comfortable, in the process. But still, you might need to have more time to prepare. Getting your supplies ready, getting your home prepared. Maybe you move to a new location. So is your new location safe or not to be in the middle of a hurricane? So those are things that you can do now. Check your insurance. Flooding insurance sometimes not cover in a basic home insurance. You need to add that to it. And it takes 30 days to take in effect. So you cannot just add it as a storm is heading your way. You need 30 days in advance in order for the insurance to, cover you.
You can check out meteorologist Nick Grahn's full interview coming to our app and YouTube channel a little bit later this summer. Of course, the folks there on the eastern coast of Florida have a lot of great advice, especially when it pertains to hurricane season. Now, this season, it's all about the numbers, and we have some numbers to present to you, the likelihood whether or not you will see a hurricane near where you live. So let's take a look here at these numbers. According to the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, NOAA says there's about a 70% chance that at least one major hurricane that's a Category 3 and above will hit the U.S. coastline this year. Florida and the Atlantic seaboard has about a 45% chance seeing a Cat 3 hurricane or stronger. And the Gulf Coast from the Florida Panhandle over to Brownsville, Texas, also has about a 45% chance of a direct hit from a major hurricane. The Caribbean, on the other hand, just under a 60% chance. Leslie?
The best ways that you can stay ahead of a busy season is to prepare and get those supplies ready now and ready to roll. Well, joining us now is the newest member of the MyRadar weather team, and that is meteorologist Jamie Martin. Jamie has a hurricane kit there with all kinds of goodies that he's going to be showing us here over these next few minutes, and they can be a real lifesaver when you're in a weather emergency. Let's see what Jamie is going to be packing into his hurricane kit right now. Jamie?
Thanks a lot, Leslie. Yeah, that's one of those things that you just want to get prepared for. It's not something you have to go out and get tomorrow. However, get a little bit at a time, and before you know it, you'll be ready just in case you do have any kind of a problem out there with the tropics, of course. First thing we're going to talk about, of course, is water. The most important thing. You've got to have fresh water. Of course, this is one of these areas that you can go ahead and fill these bags up here. These bags actually fold down. They store nicely. You don't have to worry about them most of the time. And even better, how about some water? This water actually lasts 5 years. So you buy it, you don't have to worry about it. You just set it off at the side, maybe put it in the closet. A-okay, not gonna have to worry about it, because think about it. Years where you live and actually tried to buy bottled water. Tried it there? No, don't usually get it. So this is the kind of thing you want to pick up early and just keep it stored so you don't have to worry about it. Also, if you wanted to actually heat things up, sometimes you have your propane, sometimes your propane runs out. A lot of people do try to keep things out there when it comes to barbecues. That's great. However, after a while, a couple of days, could be running out. So this is one of those ones you can actually burn debris underneath, say wood, and it works just fine. And also, hey, check this out, of course. This is going to be food. This is some of the emergency food things. Basically, they are made just to keep you safe and with enough calories to to keep you safe in the event that you can't get regular food. But of course, don't forget to get regular food, such as things that are canned, before that system moves anywhere closer to you. So this is just about the food. That's what we're talking about right now. We're going to talk more about what you can expect, including weather radios. That's something you definitely want to have, something you can use by twisting instead of having to worry about the batteries. But again, this is all going to be coming up. We'll talk more about that and even talk about the pets. That's all coming up in just a few minutes. Leslie?
All right, Jamie, thank you. That is some great advice right there. And we're going to continue to check back with Jamie throughout our live show here to see what more he has that he's packing away in that hurricane kit. Well, if you haven't had a chance to check out the 2021 hurricane names, we've got them for you. As you know, Tropical Storm Ana was already marked off the list, and several savvy Disney folks have already recognized the Anna-Elsa connection here in the 2021 list. As you know, there are 21 names. The last name on that list is Wanda, and we'll see if we get there, you guys. Soon after the 2020 hurricane season was over, a lot of people talked about this hurricane haze that you hear so much about, and it was such an unprecedented year. Folks are weary as they head into this season. While the Hurricane Center is not expecting as many storms this year as last year, all indications point to an exceptionally busy 6 months. It may have seemed like it was just yesterday, but 6 months ago we closed the books on the busiest hurricane season on record ever. An unparalleled 12 named storms, including a record-tying 6 hurricanes, slammed into the United States in 2020, with precious little areas along the Gulf Coast and East Coast spared, shattering the old record that stood for 170 years. For only the second time in recorded history, the Greek alphabet was used during the 2020 hurricane season, using 9 of the Greek letters. All told, there were 30 named tropical storms, 13 hurricanes, 6 of those becoming major hurricanes with winds greater than 111 miles an hour. With a track record like that and data pointing to an era of increased tropical activity, the prospects of what this year could bring, well, are intimidating, to say the least.
There are more landfalls in the U.S. There's almost twice as many landfalls during an active year from major hurricanes as there are during inactive years. There's 40% more storms during an active year in general than an inactive year.
Research shows we've seen more storms and more of them hit the U.S. since the mid-1990s. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, says that the U.S. is likely to be hit with another above-normal year, with 13 to 20 named storms. According to probability data, New Orleans has a 40% chance every year of experiencing a strike. At highest risk, Miami, Florida, and Cape Hatteras, North Carolina at 48%, and San Juan, Puerto Rico at 42%. Just last year, as part of the Gulf Coast were hit repeatedly, over and over again in an almost vicious cycle, Louisiana getting a record 5 direct hits alone. It is 2:02 a.m. Eastern Time, 1:02 Central Time, and we now have an official landfall from our catastrophic Category 4 Hurricane Laura. Hurricane Laura unleashed its lethal fury across the Gulf Coast. The storm surge in Cameron Parish came in so fast and with such ferocity, experts likened it more to a tsunami as it pushed an estimated 17-foot wall of water onto parts of Louisiana's coast, putting Laura in the record books as one of the top 10 highest storm surges ever along the Gulf Coast region.
So in 1 hour, the ocean rose 8 to 10 feet above its normal levels, which is staggering. I don't know that I've ever seen that type of rise in my tenure, at least observed, and it's absolutely impossible to react.
2020 marked the 5th consecutive year with an above-normal Atlantic hurricane season. It also marked the 5th season we've seen a Category 5 hurricane form in the Atlantic Basin. So what is the climate telling us now, and what should we expect this year?
So climate change has not been directly linked to the frequency of named storms, tropical storms, but it has been linked to an increase in intensity of storms. So once they do form, they have a possibility to get to those Category 4 and 5 storms to get that intensity level up. Climate change is also linked to heavier precipitation within storms. about 3%. That's about the estimate that we've experienced through at the current time. Also, sea level rise can make coastal areas much more prone to the flooding.
NOAA research points to a 70% chance this hurricane season will be above normal. And there are a couple of clues from the atmosphere that tell us it will be. Warmer than normal sea surface temperatures, a weaker than normal vertical wind shear, which means storms can organize better, weaker than normal trade winds, and an active African monsoon season all mean the next 6 months are primed for increased tropical activity. So the Hurricane Center has upped their game, bringing several new improvements this year to help forecast tropical cyclones that will help get the word out sooner and more accurately. For instance, they've upgraded the GFS American model to improve hurricane forecasting that extends wave models from 10 days to now 16 days. They've also upgraded their storm surge model, called the P-Surge, to better predict tropical cyclone wind structure and size. That alone can dramatically improve storm surge flooding forecasts. The Hurricane Center will also be deploying more air and water drones to gather more data throughout the life cycles of tropical systems. That long-range tracking means the drones will triple their capacity and double their storage data to make the hurricane models more accurate than ever before. But with all the atmospheric clues and all of the meteorological bells and whistles, storms can still surprise us. Even today, they can shatter records, make history, and defy climatology. Preparing for the unexpected is what will likely keep you ahead of the storm. All right, you guys, we just officially wrapped up the Memorial Day weekend. I really hope you had a great one. A lot of folks were headed to the beaches and lakes across the country. Well, we have a partner this year that we're going to be relying on heavily as we head into this hurricane season, and that is WeatherStem. We have 2 cameras we're going to show you today live. Our first one is in Beaufort, South Carolina, and you can see here that they've had a pretty nice day. You know, lots of blue sky there. There's definitely some cumulus out there that are trying to build maybe to bring in some rain for them later this afternoon. Another area of the country that had a lot of folks out and about was in Miami. And of course, they've been having some rain in parts of South Florida. But look at that at the University of Miami campus there. They have a gorgeous shot. A couple of high clouds there. Looks absolutely fantastic. But I know that there has been rain off and on throughout parts of South Florida. They may see some of that later today. Well, meteorologist Mike Linden is back now to tell us what we can do to get our homes ready for hurricane season. Mike?
Leslie, just because hurricane season is officially here doesn't mean that you are too late to prepare for the season at hand. That's why our partners at Flash, the Federal Alliance for Safe Homes, say that this season has never been easier to be prepared, just as long as you give yourself some time.
Here we go again. Hurricane season is here. Are you prepared for it? That's what the folks at Flash, the Federal Alliance for Safe Homes, are asking homeowners once again this year.
It only takes one. In Hurricane Andrew back in 1992, it was a slow season, but boy, that Cat 5 storm packed a deadly wallop.
That's why being hurricane strong isn't just a catchy slogan. It's a headache-saving mindset for a busy time of year. The first stop towards a safer, stronger home? Knowing your building code. That's why Flash has revamped inspecttoprotect.org. That way, homeowners can know the recipe that was used to build their home in the first place.
The program is called No Code, No Confidence, Inspect to Protect. The reason we say that is because if your home is built in a Texas county without a building code, you cannot be confident that it's going to be able to withstand the forces of nature. If you don't want to put in your full address, you can just put in your zip code. And it's going to zero in on your jurisdiction where you live and that jurisdiction's decision on which codes they're using.
Some upgrades and repairs to your home could take a lot of time, but Flash has you covered for simple ways to strengthen your home. On hurricanestrong.org, you'll find a DIY inspection checklist, making it easier than ever to be sure you're ready for the storm and everything that comes with it.
There's a lot of evidence in the marketplace that people are really taking these things to heart, and then that is very encouraging. And we always talk about the ways to prepare and just chipping away at them a little bit at a time.
As the saying goes, fail to prepare, then prepare to fail. This is all the more true when you consider skipping that one part of your home. Think about it. Have you checked your roof to be sure your shingles are all there? The alternative during a hurricane isn't fun.
Even if you just lose your shingles, we know that an unprotected roof deck gets 9 bathtubs of water per minute in a hurricane.
There are some super simple, cost-effective ways to protect your home, and it all comes down to a few dollars worth of caulk.
Wind-driven rain can come through your windows, causing sogginess and damage that's really hard to clean up, and that can happen without any damage to the window at all. So simply caulking around your windows, which is great for energy efficiency too, each year before hurricane season is going to help you keep that water out.
With an above-average season on the horizon for the 6th year in a row, above all else, don't get flustered. You've got this. Just take it one step at a time.
You can't do all this on one day, but you can break it down and be very prepared and have peace of mind beforehand.
Big shout out to the folks from Flash. They have a ton of great information. And you can actually go to hurricanestrong.org to see all that information and then some, the DIY checklist. So much great information. I've got it pulled up right here, including not only how you can be sure that you have an insurance checkup done in case you do run into the worst that Mother Nature has to offer you, but also some more information on how to build a disaster kit. We've got our own in-house expert packing his own disaster kit right now, and that is meteorologist Jamie Martin. You got more stuff out on the table there, Jamie. What's up next?
Yeah, Mike, we have a lot of other things to show you. In fact, it's amazing how small they can make some things out there. Believe it or not, this is actually a sleeping bag. Look how small that is. Perfect for emergencies. And again, this is something you don't even use up that much room to get in there. And don't forget, you want to have things like weather radios. The best thing about these, of course, they run on batteries. They also run on cranking. You can just crank it with your own self there. That can keep that going so you don't have to worry about running out of batteries with something like this. And of course, do not forget having this all the time, not just during hurricane season, but all the time. Have the first aid kits. That is for sure. Next to it, you also talk about duct tape. Duct tape pretty much can solve everything, that's for sure. And you also want to make sure that you have things such as gloves and things you want to use when you're cleaning up debris in and outside your house, just in case you do have any kind of emergencies. In fact, just think about it during the summer. You want to get out there, you want to enjoy that tree of the shade and that nice little light breeze. Well, guess what happens when that wind gets a little bit stronger and you have high winds out there? You can definitely see the problems that some of these trees can curtail as far as your conditions are concerned. So again, you want to be very careful out there. In fact, Daniel Smith with Flash joined me earlier, and we talked a little bit more about what you can expect and what you should be expecting just in case the wind does pick up during a hurricane situation.
Just let go, let it go, let it go.
First thing you want to do is walk around, have a look, make sure that the house looks okay and looks like it's well maintained, because often some of the issues are easy to spot. So start with that. The other thing that's fairly easy to do is to walk around and check the trees in your yard. All the things that could potentially turn into debris and damage your house and others.
And I'm sure that getting to this sooner than later, because I'm sure if something is approaching, obviously everybody's going to be getting on the phone, trying to get a hold of someone to do that work. So in other words, get it done well before the threat actually gets closer.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. So as hurricane season approaches, it should be part of your regular protocol to start looking into what you can do to make sure your house is up to scratch. Make sure that you have a shutter option if you don't have impact resistant glass. Have made contact with someone that can help you with that, so that as a storm is approaching, you're not running around trying to do all this stuff last minute, and it'll give you that peace of mind that you're protected and you have a game plan.
But what kind of problems can people have with debris such as the size of the debris and maybe even something underneath the debris, which always seems to be a problem, and that's those power lines.
First of all, with power lines, always assume they're live no matter what. Do not try to move debris or anything around a power line. If you see one that's down, walk away and call someone. That's really the only thing that you're going to want to do.
As far as the size of debris, what would you recommend? Just do the small stuff, call in the professionals for the bigger ones?
That's right. Yeah, use good judgment. And if it's something that looks like a life safety issue, say it's a tree that's fallen on part of your house, and it's a relatively good sized tree, and you can tell that if that were to fall, it's going to be very dangerous for you and potentially your house. Leave that alone. Leave it to the experts. Have a tree specialist come out, a tree technician, and take care of that for you.
Thank you for giving us that life-saving information now so people can absorb it and hopefully use it when that time comes.
Of course, absolutely. Just have a plan. That's my main advice. Have a plan and prepare ahead of time.
Yeah, definitely want to have that plan out there. In fact, even some of the states give you a little bit of a break to get your plans underway, and that's going to be tax-free items that you can purchase that are specifically for keeping yourself safe just in case you do have hurricanes. So again, let's go ahead and take that list and show you some of the list items that we have out there that you can actually save. Some of the details out there as far as the taxes go starts as little as $20 or less. That's reusable ice packs. Goes all the way up to $40, $60 items out there, including portable power banks. And then you get over here towards about $50 or less. That's going to be these radios I was just talking about, maybe gas or diesel fuel tanks also. Then you get up a little bit higher, $100 or less, including some ground anchoring systems or tie down kits. And of course, something that a lot of folks are interested in, that's going to be those portable generators. Again, if you want to pick one of those up for $1,000 or less, you can actually save the money on the taxes as far as those are concerned. So again, now is the time to get your plan ready, and that does include making sure you have all the items that can keep you and your family and your friends safe when we do end up back in the middle of our hurricane season. We'll have more details on that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of our other items that we still have to pack, including stuff for the pets, coming up in just a few minutes. Leslie?
All of that. Well, with winds crippling at 150 miles an hour, Hurricane Laura was the most powerful hurricane to slam into Louisiana since the mid-1800s. It was also the deadliest hurricane of 2020, with 78 people killed and over $19 billion in damages alone. That top end category for hurricane was one for the record books for Louisiana's Gulf Coast. And right in the thick of that was our very own storm chaser, Aaron Jajak, who joins me now live from Canyon, Texas. And he's going to tell us what it was like to ride out that very deadly hurricane on the front lines in Lake Charles, Louisiana last year. Aaron?
Hey guys, so record-breaking season last year, most hurricanes ever. And the very first one that I intercepted was Hurricane Laura. It was the most powerful one, Hurricane 4, and or Category 4 Hurricane Laura, and it made landfall on that Louisiana coast. And Lake Charles was right in that eye wall. I wanted to get in the eye of the storm, in that sometimes it could be a clear eye. So I was a little west of there in Sulphur, Louisiana. One of the reasons I was there is that coastline in Louisiana is very low and lots of swampy areas, so not a lot of areas to ride a storm out at. And as a storm chaser, there's multiple ways to chase a hurricane. You can hunker down in a parking garage or a hotel, or you can stay mobile in your vehicle. And for Hurricane Laura, I decided to do things a little different, and I wrote it out in a hotel and with the local residents. So here's my story, a little video talking about that experience in Hurricane Laura. Chasing hurricanes requires a lot of preparation, and the most important preparation of chasing a hurricane is finding a safe place to ride that hurricane out. So with Hurricane Laura, my goal was to get into that eye of that hurricane, of that Cat 4 hurricane. I had a hotel there, had all my gear in the hotel room, car parked in the parking lot. One of the things that happened while I was riding out the hurricane, that first eye wall in the hotel,
was the hotel started coming apart from both the outside and the inside.
We are crossing towards the southern half of the eye now. Should have the eye wall coming here again, the southern eye wall approaching us here. It's gonna get rough here again a little bit. I got power out here everywhere, of course. In the hallway, we got water dripping down.
And just slowly over time with wind infiltrating, it started blowing out the ceiling. You know, there were exit signs that were dangling from the ceiling. The fire alarms were going off. Rain was pouring out of the roof, out of the ceiling, flooding the top floor of my hotel there. And eventually, it was going to be working its way down to lower floors. So I knew I had to get out of that hotel. It was not a safe place to be at that point. But I couldn't go outside because of the hurricane force winds. But I had all my gear piled up close to the door of my hotel, ready to make an escape once the hurricane, the backside, the second eye wall came through. You know, my plan was to grab all my stuff, jump in the vehicle, go shoot some footage outside of what the aftermath of what had happened, and to get myself to a safe place. Or I lost cell service, so I didn't have contact with my fiance or with MyRadar. And so that was very bothersome. So I'm driving down the interstate past Sulphur, where I had stayed the night in the hotel, rode out the hurricane in the hotel, and kept going east on I-10 towards Lake Charles. And as I approached Lake Charles, I could see this big plume of smoke rising into the air. And I was like, oh, that's not good. You know, something's on fire here. So as I'm driving up, I could see that it was some kind of big building was just billowing with smoke. And I was worried. I was like, man, that looks like probably like a factory or something like that. And it could be a chemical fire. It could be dangerous chemicals in that smoke plume. And it was a real shallow smoke plume. I could punch through it real quick, drive through it. And I decided that I had to get through it, but I was going to hold my breath. So I held my breath. And I had to hold my breath for probably 40 seconds as I drove through the smoke plume. And I blasted through that smoke plume, got footage of the fire. You know, I couldn't actually see any flames, but of the building smoking, and got through that plume and got a little bit past it and was able to breathe again, and got a little whiff of chlorine. So it seemed like it was some kind of chlorine fire. So it was probably a good idea that I held my breath through that. So I got to Lake Charles. And one of the first things I saw after the smoke, when I got through the smoke plume, over the bridge into Lake Charles, was this big bluish, tealish building. It looked like it was all glass. But this building was all windows, and it was completely destroyed. I mean, it was hundreds and hundreds of windows were destroyed. I feel bad for those people. I feel bad for Lake Charles, and I hope Lake Charles, gets back on its feet and it recovers. And it's a very nice town, and I love Cajun food, and there's great Cajun food there, and I hope to get back to Lake Charles again. So that's my Hurricane Laura story, riding out Hurricane Laura in Sulphur, Louisiana, just to the west of Lake Charles. Unique experience, terrible experience, major hurricane in a record-breaking year. And I hope that Lake Charles, this year in 2021, can avoid any more hurricanes. The last thing they need is another major hurricane to come through right now when they're still recovering from last year's Hurricane Laura. Thanks, guys.
All right, that's really cool, Aaron. I just wanted to ask you a quick question here. With the pandemic last year, I know it was really challenging to try and chase hurricanes and stay safe. And, even though we're coming hopefully on the backside of, that pandemic, how are you strategizing this year?
Yeah, well, a little different this year. I've already got my the vaccinations in place, so I'm not too concerned about the pandemics this year for me being safe. But one of the things I learned last year in such a record-breaking season is that it's a marathon instead of a sprint, and you just gotta make sure you keep yourself healthy. I'm gonna make sure I'm eating plenty of healthy foods and keeping myself in good shape for another maybe long hurricane season here.
When we were watching that piece, it reminded me, Aaron, that, so many times people forget about, after the news crews leaves and after the storm chasers leave, that these people that lose their homes, it's months and even years before, they get back to a sense of normalcy. Is there anything that stuck out from that particular Lake Charles event with Hurricane Laura? Any families that you talked to, or anything that you chased last year? Several hurricanes, as you mentioned.
Yeah, well, obviously, I was, there's lots of concern there on the people's faces and lots of anxieties, whatnot, when we were going through that situation. So, for me, like you said, I'm there, I'm intercepting the storm and documenting it. And for them, they have to stick around. I'm out of there in a couple of days and don't have to deal with it. But one of the things that did stick out is I was actually back in the area just recently, a few months ago. I think it was in February for a severe weather setup in Louisiana. And I went down to the coast and I actually drove by the hotel that I had ridden the hurricane out at. And I was surprised I was not too surprised, but I guess I hadn't thought about it. It was actually abandoned. They had a big gaping hole in the side of it that had probably ripped all the TVs and beds and all that out and just completely abandoned it. And so also lots of blue tarps on the roofs of houses still there, probably even still now to this day. So it's a long, the hurricane season could be a marathon, but the recovery is even longer of a marathon. Back to you, Leslie.
It sure is. I just wanted to ask you one other quick question, Aaron. A lot of folks that follow you on Twitter and on YouTube are techie geeks, and they really get into the cameras you're using and the drones. I know you've got some new equipment that you have recently acquired. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the gear you'll be using this hurricane season, and including that new shiny drone that you've got?
Yeah, so Andy, the CEO of MyRadar, he got me a nice new drone to get up in front of these storms. I got the first flight I actually flew was in front of the Brent wedge in Alabama, tornado. And so I'm excited to get this drone into the hurricanes this year because the previous drone was a little bit weaker of a drone. And actually, I had it in a hurricane early as the hurricane approached, and there was strong winds from onshore winds coming, being pulled into the hurricane, and it actually sucked my drone out to sea. And I was worried I was going to lose it. I ended up having to lower it down right above the waves, get out of the wind a little bit, and I was able to get it back to shore. So I'm excited about this new drone. It's a much more powerful drone. Should be able to handle those hurricane winds this season.
That's awesome. And I know we also have a live view unit that gives you the capability to stream live from your car as you're driving. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And it has capabilities it's better than just your standard phone. It can connect to multiple cellular networks, and it bonds that network together to get a stronger signal. Sometimes when there's these events are going on, the towers obviously can get affected by power outages, but also lots of people using the towers. So the ability to connect to multiple service providers, multiple towers, is really going to help keep that footage live during the event.
Well, we are really looking forward to it, Aaron. Some of the best video in the business and some of the best live streams are exactly from you. We're so fortunate to have you. We know that you always are safe, and really looking forward to finishing out severe weather season. It's been busy this year. You've been hitting a lot of miles, and we look forward to watching you safely chase these hurricanes this year.
It sounds good. I look forward to bringing you guys that footage, and can't wait to get that live shot for in the app this hurricane season.
Absolutely. Well, Aaron, thank you so much. That is our storm chaser, Aaron J. Jack, joining us from Canyon, Texas, where he has had a busy last couple of months with the severe storm season. So let's talk about what's going on right now and get you updated, because that is what we do here, and we do have a tropical update. So we're going to take a look at the Atlantic Basin. As we mentioned, May 15th, the National Hurricane Center started issuing their tropical weather outlooks, and we've been showing those to you every day in the fast forecast. And over the last 2 weeks or so, it's been relatively quiet. Of course, we had Tropical Storm Ana, as we know, but right now the National Hurricane Center on this official day of the first day of hurricane season says there is no development expected over the next 5 days. So that is also good news. I wanted to again kind of focus in on that infrared imagery from the Gulf of Mexico and that upper level low that you can see spinning over the Bahamas. So again, this would have to be a surface-based low to be a tropical system, but upper level lows can create a fair amount of weather. As I mentioned, there's been some rain across the Florida Peninsula and over the Bahamas for sure. So we'll keep an eye on that upper level low as well. And then in terms of what is expected for this season, well, here's a look over a graph of time here. This dates back to 1851 when the National Hurricane Center started officially keeping records. And you can see there was a huge spike. We've had a couple of big spikes. 2005 was a record season at 28 storms, but of course last year broke that with 30 named storms. Forecast officially is for 13 to 20 named storms this year. The average is about 12 per hurricane season, and we've had one so far. But as we mentioned in my story story earlier in the show that we have been in a multi-decadal increase or uptick in tropical activity. So we are expecting to see likely more than 12 named storms before all is said and done. And this time of the year in June typically is one of the lower months that we get in terms of percentages of tropical systems. As you can see here, about 6% of all the tropical storms we get during these 6 months comes in the month of June. It steadily goes up into August. September is technically the peak of hurricane season when we see the most tropical systems that form into storms or hurricanes, and then it drops off in October and November. So where do we look in the month of June? Well, right where we're looking right now, actually. We look in the Gulf of Mexico. Climatologically, history has told us this is a favored area for development where tropical storms can form. And of course, the sea surface temperatures are very warm there in the upper 80s, and it doesn't take much for storms to form. Usually the upper level patterns are not all that conducive this time of the year. They're still pretty hostile, but that tends to shear systems apart. But then we also look in the Caribbean for tropical development for this time of the year as well. And all of that would point to a system that we could see down the road. And then look at that. Even off the coast of Florida in the month of June is an area that we could see tropical development. Again, that's over through parts of the Bahamas as well. So we'll look at all of these areas this time of the year. And of course, we'll shift our eyes back towards Africa as we get further along in the season. Well, oftentimes when a tropical storm hits, there are major power outages that can go along with tropical systems, and that can last for days or even weeks. But thanks to the newest feature in our app, in the MyRadar app, you can track those power outages in real time. Joining us again is meteorologist Mike Linden with more on that. Mike?
Leslie, this is one of the coolest features that we have added in quite a while, and especially when you are dealing with severe weather, with a hurricane, tropical storm, what have you, in the moment to know that there are power outages around you can be some really helpful information. So let's jump right into the app here. I've actually got the hurricane tracker layer turned on, and right there off the coast of Mexico, that is Tropical Storm Blanca. Fun times indeed, but in order to turn on the power outage forecast, or the power outages that I should say, you tap on the layer menu. It looks like the stack of cards on the bottom toolbar there. We tap on that, and then right at the bottom is power outages. So we turn that on, and we're actually able to see power outage information across the United States. Let's zoom in right here and take a look at what's going on over southeastern Utah. You tap on that, and that's going to tell us in San Juan County there are 11 customers, just 11, affected by this outage, a good 1.2% of the total customers. How about what we have going on here in Colorado in the top left there in northwestern Colorado? 59 customers affected, and it will tell you the number of customers that have been tracked. This is information through your power company, and that is going to, again, you can see it breaking down there, the different utility companies, Moon Lake Electric and Xcel Energy there in Colorado, but it is all going to cater to your specific area. And when you are dealing with severe weather or, again, tropical activity, to know if folks around you are losing power can potentially be some life-saving information to be prepared and be ready. That is why now is the time to get that hurricane kit ready to go. It wasn't too long ago that meteorologist Jamie Martin told you about getting that generator tax-free if you have that available to you where you live. But of course, we would not be doing a service to Chief Meteorologist Leslie Hudson if we weren't going to talk about the animals, because we all love animals here at MyRadar, and Jamie has got more on how to make sure you don't forget your furry friends this season. Jamie?
Yeah, really, it's one of those things you always have to worry about, because you're not really sure whether you're going to be bringing your pets with you or leaving them at home. And that's something that, of course, people just always worry about, and that's for sure. A couple of things you want to do here is make sure they have things like their treats, just the regular food, dog food, cat food, all the same. Just make sure they're the easy ones, not the refrigerated ones, obviously. In cans, don't have to worry about it. Don't forget any kind of pills that they have too, because that could easily run out. And something as simple as toys, also want to make sure they have something to keep themselves busy when it comes through. Now, one of the biggest things I like to have, in fact, this is what I do with my dog back home. Oh yeah, got to have one of these big kennels. These kennels are extremely strong. You could sit on this, you could stand on it, wouldn't even make a difference. And again, this is something you could put your pet in, especially if you have to leave, and basically that will keep them nice and safe, and that'll save you from having to worry about what's going on with them. So it's just one more thing that you can do to keep your pet safe and give you a little bit more ability when it comes to getting that done. And don't forget, even like playing cards, make sure your kids or yourselves, your friends, whichever, getting together afterwards, have something to do to keep yourself busy, because that's going to make it a little bit better as far as getting through a tropical system is concerned, because it can be a real problem for a lot of folks, especially after about 7 days without power in all this heat. So again, you want to make sure you are ready for it and keeping yourself on the safe side. Of course, we'll keep you updated on that. Leslie, so boy, the pets, definitely want to keep a very close eye on them when it comes to the hurricane season.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jamie. You know, as Mike mentioned, we're all animal lovers here at MyRadar. They are actually, it's a dog-friendly workplace. We can, a lot of people here bring their dogs in. We were going to bring in my hurricane rescue dog, Radar, who I rescued from Hurricane Dorian, but he weighs about 90 pounds right now, and he's a lot to handle, so I decided to leave him at home. But, you know, that's all such great information. Thank you so much, Jamie, for letting us know about all of those things that you'll be tucking away in your kit this year. All right, you guys, that is going to do it for our hurricane special, Surviving the Season. All of the stories that you've seen here today, you can check out in their entirety on our YouTube channel, as well as all of our social media channels as well. Now, make sure you're a subscriber to the YouTube channel. And if you are not, you need to make sure you subscribe and like our content, and you could possibly win a new phone down the road. We're giving them away at $80,000, $90,000, and $100,000 when we get those subscribers. So make sure you pass the info along. You can see all of our social media channels as well. You know where to find us at MyRadar. All right, on behalf of the MyRadar weather team, which includes, of course, meteorologist Jamie Martin, our newest member, and of course, meteorologist Mike Linden. I have been Chief Meteorologist Leslie Hudson, but we could not get out of here without saying a big thank you to, of course, Aaron Jajak out in the field and our behind-the-scene masterminds, Matt Hyland and Damian McFarland, who worked so hard to put this content together for you guys. And we're really fortunate to have them on the team. So on behalf of them, you guys, again, we want to thank you for joining us today with our live special Surviving the Season. Remember, we'll be here all season long, all 6 months, to keep you up to date and help weather these storms together. Be well and stay safe, and thanks for watching.